Our premise is that we have a new civilization based on these smartphones. If Einstein were investigating nature today, he would start with what he finds inside your smartphone. This chapter has 3 parts. Part 1, how app designers try to increase our amount of screen time. Part 2, a study of how much we are actually using our smartphones. Part 3, Einstein's experience. Part 1. To increase your amount of screen time, app designers use artificial intelligence to study each individual user to find out how to increase your pleasure. For example, do you respond best to a thumbs up or a happy face? Once they know that, they give you that positive feedback, that pleasure, but they give it to you inconsistently, which is more addicting than if they gave it to you all the time. Inconsistent positive feedback is called variable rewards.
Facebook loves giving variable rewards. And it works. We now spend nearly an hour on Facebook every day, 25% more than we did just 2 years ago. In that same time, our overall smartphone use has shot up more than an hour and a half a day.
Einstein is thinking to himself that he spent the latter half of his life fighting for democracy and against tyrannies, and now he is discovering that in the midst of the greatest democracies on earth, people are signing up to be addicted. Part 2 concerns a family in Ontario, Canada. They volunteered to be studied. They allowed the researchers to put an app named Moment on their devices to measure how much screen time they actually used. Mom was worried about what the study would find.
She's literally playing games as we speak.
I just feel like I'm going to look like a bad mother.
Her son, Jackson, is never far from his Samsung tablet.
Wake up, eat breakfast, Samsung, go to school.
He's been wired up for half his life, and he's only 8.
And then after school?
Samsung, eat before I go to bed because I'm hungry. Samsung, go to bed, good night. Sleep like a sheep.
So, how much screen time is Jackson using? They studied him during the summer for almost 8 weeks, then added up his screen time. His average was 5 hours a day, but on some days it was twice that, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. They have not yet told his mother, but she sees it coming.
I do worry about the amount of time that Jackson spends on his tablet. He seems to prefer being on his tablet over everything else.
Meantime, 16-year-old Emily.
I feel like it's just part of our lives now. Like everyone does it, and like it's something like every single morning you wake up and do it. Like before you get ready for school.
It's just a routine now, and like if you don't do it, then you're different from everyone else.
They call it FOMO, fear of missing out.
I just need to know what's going on, and I just feel like I need to answer before like I'm out of the loop kind of thing. So,
Especially group chat.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
158 million people use Snapchat every day. What keeps them so addicted?
My highest one right now is 643 with one of my friends from baseball.
Mine's 547.
Mine's 551.
They're talking about streaks, the number of days in a row that you snap a friend. Emily has a streak that's been going almost 2 years.
It's just kind of like now we have to.
That's called loss aversion. Something that started out as a pleasure has now become a prison.
Especially if it's over a year, then it's really intense and you have to.
Just another way that app designers keep us coming back for more. The proof is on Emily's phone. There are days that she's on it 5, 6, or 7 hours a day, mostly on Snapchat. Part 3, Einstein's experience. Einstein was not that social a person. What he loved more than anything was sitting alone with the door closed in his study, sitting in a chair, thinking. He could sit and think for hours, days, sometimes a week or two. He would forget everything else and just concentrate on one thing. He would fall asleep thinking about something like gravity and wake up the next morning still thinking about it. He had friends. He had 2 wives and a couple of dozen girlfriends. But his empathy was not great. What was great was his fascination with the mystery of the universe. If he owned a smartphone, Einstein would leave it uncharged in the kitchen. The last thing he would ever want would be to have a smartphone interrupt his meditation after 3 days isolated in his study. This is the end of the chapter on social media. If you like it, please hit the like button below and subscribe. And in 3 weeks, we will release the next video, which will propose, fasten your seatbelts, that smartphones are not addicting.